here. Since we are right at the top of the hour, want to be conscious of everyone's time and go ahead and start us off, Tracy.
Perfect. Well, hello everyone. I'm Tracy Rule, and I am your IEA president. I say for the last time.
Okay.
We really want to thank the Miami execs and their ED Julie Sack for welcoming us to their meeting this morning. It was really great. We had a great conversation with the board afterwards, and we are excited to head to Fort Lauderdale later today for dinner. We're going to one of the members, the Riverside Hotel, and then we've got a fun golf outing and a dinner social tomorrow night. So looking forward to seeing lots of people at those events. We're also looking to hope to recruit a Floridian to our board just to have some Eastern representation. I'd like to introduce the IEA board members who are here in Miami and thank them for making the commitment. So we've got Patricia and Alan from Vancouver, Kern from Honolulu, Yvonne from Akron, James from Nanaimo, Lisa from Seattle. Woodstock I say because we have Lisa Jordan to my right, Michelle from San Francisco, and our managing director, Lisa from Charlotte.
Hello. I'm trying to pan the room so you can see everybody there.
The additional board members that are not in person today but are on Zoom, we've got John from Akron. We've got Dina and Dale from Las Vegas. I don't know that Dale was coming. He was here for the meetings all morning, and I don't know if Dina joined us for this or not, but potentially. Mallory from Detroit, and Gay and Eric from Edmonton. So thank you to all the board members that made this a priority. We do appreciate it. Over the past year, this IEA board has been busy creating value for our members, and you'll hear more about that in a moment. I just want to say thank you to everybody for your hard work. I really do mean that from the bottom of my heart. We decided that I was elected, I believe, in Charlotte. And so it's been 5 years of this 2-year term. So COVID kept me around a little longer than I thought, but it's been a great ride. And I really appreciate everybody that's been on this board. So thank you. Now a bit of brief IEA business. We emailed a proposed board slate last week to all IEA members. And we will also accept any nominations from the floor for anybody that may be interested in running for the IEA board. So if you're on Zoom and you're interested in running for the board, sing us a song. Let us know.
This is the part where that's when the camera's off.
Yeah. And then the following board members are running for the IEA board, and if approved, they'll serve a 2-year term that starts 2023 and will go till the conference or the annual general meeting in 2025. So up for re-election and agreeing that their names will stand for to be running are James Kikinger from Nanaimo, Dina Linderholm from Las Vegas, Kieran Oishi, yes, from Honolulu, Alan Robertson from Vancouver, Patricia Tate from Vancouver, and Dale Sprague from Las Vegas. And we've also had 2 new people that are coming to join our board. Leigh Pedro from Honolulu, and I did say hi to Leigh, and she's got the nice flower behind her ear. And John Casa from the Detroit execs. I don't know if John's joined us today or not.
Mallory, is John on the call?
I don't see him, but I know he was very excited about the opportunity, so.
Great. So I would ask for a motion and a second to approve these board members, as we don't have anybody else that's willing or wanting to join.
I move that we accept the slate of directors as presented.
Thank you, Michelle. And a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, Yvonne will be the seconder. All in favor, if you could raise your hands and wave, thumbs up. Anybody opposed? Let's hear from you. And I believe that we're going to have that unopposed. So that's excellent. Thank you. And welcome to the 2 new board members. And thank you for everybody staying on. If you'd like to be more involved in the IEA, but not as a board member just yet, love to talk to you about being involved in a committee. We've got a number of things that we're dealing with on a committee level that the more the merrier. And it's a good opportunity for you to see what the IEA board does before you decide you might want to be a board member. specifically looking for help in expanding our social media presence and our day-to-day bookkeeping at IEA. So if you're interested in either of these areas, please just reach out to Lisa or let your ED know, and that ED can reach out to Lisa. At our board meeting earlier today, we elected the new officers for IEA, and at this time I'd like to share those with you. The incoming president is going to be James Keitinger. Congratulations. Vice President Dale Sprague, Treasurer Gay Andrews, and Secretary Kern Oishi. And I'm going to become the immediate past president. So we're going to say goodbye to Lisa Woodstock as immediate past president. She has agreed not to go too far, and she's going to stay as a committee member and chair of the ambassador program, which are, I'm sorry, well, the ambassador, but also of the
here and working in the desk.
yeah, no problem.
Webinar.
The webinars. So we'll continue to have the great webinars that we've seen. So she's going to stay involved in that. So thank you for that. It has been my pleasure serving, and I really am grateful to all of you guys, and I do love the IEA. But now I get to turn it over to my successor, and with that, I give you James.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tracy. My name is James Keitinger, as Tracy said. I'm from the Nanaimo Association in Vancouver Island, Canada. So I'm very excited to be your new IEA president, and I'm really looking forward to the coming year. I'd like to share you about, with this brand new IEA initiative that we're starting to release in the coming weeks. We're launching an IEA travel website where you're able to receive a discount on hotel bookings just for being an IEA member. So please look out for details on that new partnership. We'll be sending emails and further details. And it's just another way of being an IEA member that brings value to your business. So now I'm going to turn it over to a few of our board members to talk about some additional happenings in the IEA. So Yvonne?
Yes, we would like to thank our annual IEA sponsors, Woodstock Media Group, On Whole Concepts, and IEBT, Mobile Drug and Alcohol Testing. And we have some great sponsorship opportunities for everyone that are available if you're looking for other ways to advertise your business. Details can be found on the website at IEAweb.com, and you can log in and sign up to become a sponsor or purchase a banner ad. And you will get, it was our first year and we had a phenomenal response to it. And Lisa with Woodstock Media Group has had over 2 million views since they started with their banner ad. So it's a great opportunity to get your name out there for your business.
Great. Thanks, Yvonne. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Jordan, the Managing Director of the IEA. I've seen many of you on Zoom over the past year. And I just want to remind you that if your chapter needs a reminder on how they can best utilize their IEA membership benefits, please let me know. I would be more than happy to Zoom in to an upcoming meeting and as a guest speaker and share a short PowerPoint presentation with your membership to remind them of their benefits. And in addition, just a friendly reminder that I host a bi-monthly executive director call, and this is open for EDs to collaborate and share best practices on a topic that is timely. So if your ED hasn't mentioned those calls to you, please encourage them to attend. And if your chapter has a particular topic that they're struggling with, the EDs are all here to help one another. So please reach out to us, and we'd be glad to brainstorm and figure out a solution for them. And now I'm pleased to turn it over to my friend Patricia, a fellow ED, who's going to share with you some information about future conference. And hang with us, we've got about like 3 more minutes and then we're getting to Christina. So go ahead, Patricia.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm Patricia Tate from the Vancouver Executives Association. And last year, my chapter had the pleasure to host the annual IEA conference. This year, instead of the traditional conference, the IEA board, led by now our new president, James Keitinger, put together this exciting event, 2-day event, including a golf tournament tomorrow, actually, all day, I guess. So this morning, we've been sitting together in our board meeting, and I'm super excited to share the news with you guys that we decided as the board to plan the conference for the fall of 2024 in Las Vegas. The exact dates will be announced shortly. So watch out for more information in your inboxes. And yeah, we'll see you there, hopefully. On that note, we will continue to look for other chapters to host that conference in the future. So if you are interested in that at all, please reach out to us and we'll happy to connect with you guys. And now over to Lisa Woodstock, who will be telling us all about the webinars.
Okay, I'm sure you're all familiar that once a month we have a webinar. And I wanted to remind your members that those webinars are free to them. And for you to give a webinar, it is free to you. I just need you to reach out to me with your topic if you're interested, and I'll look at the schedule and see what we can come up with. And the program, I think now is, I think this will be going on the 3rd year that we've been doing the webinars, and they just keep getting better and better. And so today, we also have a webinar. Oh, and I'd also like to remind you that the webinars are all posted on the IEA website and our YouTube channel. So if you really wanted to attend one and you couldn't, you can find it there. Now, what you've all been waiting for, it's my pleasure to introduce our webinar host and keynote speaker today, Christina Fair of the Detroit Executives Association. Today's topic, chapter by chapter, strengthening membership retention through a positive association culture. Christina Fair, here's her bio. She's a visionary entrepreneur shaping the business landscape in Detroit, Michigan, as founder, CEO of Reconnect Detroit and co-founder of COO of Hum. She excels at building dynamic companies and high-performing happy teams. Her passion for innovation, growth, and strategic connections has made her a prominent figure in the startup community, leading her to holding board seats on the Michigan Founders Fund and the Detroit Executives Association. Personally, Christine is a mom of 2, son Liam, 17, and daughter Annabelle, 12, wife to John, and is a huge wellness and life balance advocate. In the end, her goal is to make the lives of those she encounters each day better as a result of her being here. And so without further ado, I turn it over to Christina.
Hi, everybody. So good to see so many people on this call. I was glad to hear you mention as well the webinars. I was fortunate enough to give a webinar earlier this year, and it was super fun because I find with these that I show up to talk about something that I am by no means an expert in, but just think is an interesting topic. And then I get a lot of feedback from everybody else and find ways to make stuff better. So thank you all for being here. Congratulations to the new board members and the new executive folks. And this is just so awesome. And I'm so happy to be here. I am going to go ahead. I actually don't have to screen share because I have this cool background situation that I love to use. So feel free to pin me if that's an easier way to do it, or you can swap your view from gallery view to speaker view if you would like a closer look at my face, which I don't know why anyone would want that. You can all look at each other. I think that's fine. So I'm Christina Fair. I joined the Detroit chapter in 2021. We were actually still in quarantine. I joined virtually. I had my first, I don't even know, several months over Zoom. So was very fortunate to meet people in person. I joined the group early on as I had just sold a previous company of mine. I had previously been running a fiber internet company in the city of Detroit. We offered service to both commercial and residential folks all throughout the city. Amazing experience. And then sold that company and then launched what became Reconnect Teams. We did corporate team building events, leadership coaching and development. And now I've added in this cohort-based coaching for women and those who identify as women. In addition to that, I also have a new tech startup back in the fiber internet space called Hum. And so I'm just so fortunate to be surrounded by so many amazing humans in the Detroit Executives Association. I did join the board of the DEA in January of this year. So this is my first step in that direction, and hope to be taking more of an active role as well at the international level. So much value here. And so I'm glad to see you all here connecting together. As was described in my bio, that's my cutie family. My son is 17. He's a senior in high school. My daughter is in middle school. She's 12. That's my husband. And those are both my company logos. So today we're here to talk about strengthening membership retention through positive association culture. And when Lisa had reached out about Keynote and we had kind of talked about a few different things that we could go over today, this seemed to be the one that was resonating the most. And I'd just like to stress, I know we've got some of the Detroit chapter folks on this call as well. Thank you guys for being here. Love you. That we are not experts in this either. This has been a topic of conversation for us over the last several years. And so the fact that this is something that's on the minds of everyone else here was so awesome, and just a really unique and awesome time for us to get together to talk about this. Which brought us to a little bit of data. There was a survey that went out to some of the executive directors and presidents of the chapters. We received 17 responses for that. Lisa, thank you so much for getting this put together. Of the 17, 16 expressed worry over retention and new member acquisition for their chapters. So this just solidified the fact that after Lisa and I thought that this was a good topic, that this is definitely something that we're all talking about. Of the feedback that we received, the majority of those members that have been lost over the course of the last year were general members, meaning that they did not hold board seats, they were not on committees, they were general members of their organization. And of the reasons that were pulled out of those folks during exit interviews or just general conversation, it was the time commitment that was the biggest factor, excluding retirement from those numbers. Obviously, we'll always have folks retiring and moving on from the organization. That makes sense, and there's nothing we can do about that. We could work to retain the, if the company is staying intact, we can work to retain that company as a whole, but obviously we're going to exclude those folks from the number. So if we dig into time commitment, there's a lot more there. And for those of you who were with me when we talked about team member happiness and team member satisfaction, when I held a webinar a few months ago, we talked about how a lot of times we'll pull data out of folks and it appears very surface level. Time commitment is a perfect example of that. It's very easy to say, I don't have time to go to these meetings. Weekly commitments are hard. We're all business leaders, decision makers, business owners, and it can be hard to carve that time out for personal growth and development, or whatever your personal reason was for joining the association. But I will add that if there was not another underlying factor there, we might see this time commitment thing be something that folks are talking about a little bit less, meaning that there's usually something else besides the time commitment. If there was something in it for these folks, they would make the time in order to do that, right? It's just like anything else in our world. We will always carve the time out to talk to all of our customers, right? We're making money on that. And so, of course, the primary concern for every single person in this organization is going to be to talk to our clients and customers. There would never come a time where we would say we wouldn't have time for that. Same like for me, I make dinner for my family. It's something that is important to me. So I carve that time out to make that commitment to them. So in the end, we've got to dig a little deeper here and see what's really happening under the surface. So I wanted to start this out by just chatting. We're going to get into this a little further as far as some possible reasons that we could be seeing here, some issues, some areas of opportunity for all of the chapters. But the first thing I wanted to do was just ask this group, what are you seeing in your chapter? We heard from the executive directors, we heard from the presidents. I'd like to hear from everyone else on this call. What are you seeing happening in your chapter, either from an acquisition standpoint, we're having a hard time attracting new people into our organization, or we feel like people are a little less engaged than they used to be. And here's kind of what I'm hearing. Does anyone have anything that you would like to talk about? Don't be shy.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say in our Edmonton Executives Association chapter, we just recently stopped doing the Zoom, because it used to be that we could, you could have a hybrid meeting where you had a choice of Zoom or you had a choice of in-person. And there was a number of people that out of convenience, I think more than anything, were doing Zoom. And we found that the presence in the room and like people just aren't as committed to it. Like you've lost that touch of the connection, and it's just not as solid as it once was. And that's something that we're talking about in our group is, you know, how do we, what do we need to do? Do we need more social events? Do we need, like, other than just the meeting where we need people to come and be in person in the meeting, we need to re-engage those connections with people to people, because that's what made our group so strong. And it seems like it's changed.
That's a great point. And when we met again for the last webinar where we talked about team member retention, this is a huge topic that we talk about in the world of employee satisfaction. In the world that we live in today, it's different than what it looked like 20, 30, 40 years ago, where folks would join a company and they would stay out of loyalty or out of just pure money factor. Young people, especially today, what we're learning in all this data that we've been gathering about millennials and this new generation of folks that's moving up into leadership, they crave personal connections with other humans. And so they're more likely to stay with your company as an employee if they feel this overwhelming sense of connection to fellow team members and to the leaders. If they feel like the group has their best interest in mind and really, really wants to see them grow and develop as humans, they're likely to stay with their organization longer, regardless of even if they're able to go make more money elsewhere. And so there's a lot of that stuff going on. And I love that you brought up that hybrid model, because there's pros and cons to that, right? If you take away the Zoom, now you've got folks that might back out because they can't make that time commitment to drive into wherever your meeting is being held. And fundamentally, are those folks that we would want to retain anyway? Or are we looking for and seeking that in-person connection, the networking, the personal conversations about what everyone did over the weekend and celebrating grandkids' birthday parties and like all of the things that come from being in these in-person meetings. And so I think fundamentally it starts with sitting down within your chapter, particularly it starts with your board and saying, what do we value the most? What matters to us most? Is it having 100 members, all of which could join by Zoom? Or is it, let's get together in person? As someone who joined virtually over Zoom, the thing that attracted me most to the group, just straight up keeping it honest, was the business to business exchange I saw happening in that Zoom room. When I joined, I had been through so many different networking groups over time, women networking groups, executive networking groups, startup networking groups. And yes, it can be cool to come and hang out with people. And the number one reason why I think most people join this group as opposed to someone else is because it's just you're siloed in your designation and you're able to exchange business to business with people that you trust, like, and respect. So that's why we talk about that hybrid world of developing close personal connection and also making sure that there's a business exchange there happening. And so what we started to notice in the Detroit chapter is that if we had someone who joined who wasn't working to build personal connection, therefore wasn't building trust, like, and respect with other members, they weren't seeing business exchange. So if they're not getting either pieces of that equation, what's in it for them to stay? And so how can we get them engaged both on a personal level and on that business to business exchange level very, very quickly out of the gates within the first 3 months of them joining in order to retain them over the long haul? And so we've made a huge focus on that just over the last 6 months, creating better processes and onboarding processes. We'll get into all of that later. But I love that you brought up that hybrid piece, because it has to start with fundamentally you all sitting down and figuring out what matters most to you in that equation. Anybody else have anything to add in that world that you're seeing specifically to your group?
I do. I'm from Seattle, and we've put a big push on a membership drive, and we've brought in like 15 members, and a lot of them are younger and they're attracting other younger members, and it just creates this energy in the room, and it's gotten all of the members energized.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up. We're actually going to talk about that in just a little bit. Excellent. Anything else that strikes out?
Feel free to unmute yourself and chime in or post it in the chat if you'd like. We're monitoring that too.
Maybe
we'll go over.
Sorry,
Yeah.
maybe one thing is balancing, the mindset and tradition of the older members with, the new energized crew that's coming in. I know we've noticed that a lot in Detroit, is how to balance between the two of maintaining the values and the tradition in the organization in Detroit that's coming up on 100 years, and people who are used to doing things a certain way, and then balancing all the new ideas that we want to attract and keep the new members as well.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely ties into the energy of the younger members. We're going to go over a lot of this in a couple of slides, but yes, that's a huge piece. What does Amanda say? We've run into an issue where it's become more of a social club and business doesn't feel like it's being driven from the outside. We also have a lot of members that don't want more business because they're on the verge of retiring. Yeah, that's a huge piece. And so starting to develop some best practices there around what does that look like? What is the expectation? And making sure that those are things that you're covering in every meeting, right? So that I know for our group, as an example, I never want to be the person who shows up at a meeting and has no business to talk about, either to or from. Like that, I don't know that there's a worse feeling than that. And that was what drew me to the group. And so how do we make sure that everyone feels that same sense of obligation to the group and that they truly understand what they can get in return by giving that business to other people? So that's a great point, Amanda. Thank you. So we can talk about here the mission of the International Executives Association as a whole. So I pulled this from the site. So we've got this mission to foster the growth of executive association business by connecting them to a trusted international network of contacts. This typically will trickle down to local chapters as fostering the growth of the businesses by connecting them to other businesses in order to continue growth of all of those businesses, right? And then the vision for IEA is to be the world's #1 leading source for connecting member businesses. And I truly believe that that is truth. I don't think that there's anyone on this call who doesn't see that as the value of this organization. And also, because I'm always like, we're adding on, the cornerstone to that has to be those personal relationships, right? Because if you don't feel comfortable referring business to your fellow members, that is a problem. And so how do you get to know people at a human level so that when something comes up, I mean, it happens for me all the time, like literally every single day, someone in my house is like, does the DEA have someone who, my husband said it this morning, does the DEA have a pest control person? And I was like, no, we don't have a pest control person. We need a pest control person. We have a spider issue happening in our basement. And so that should always be the first thing that pops into your mind, right? Whether you're sitting at home by yourself or when one of your friends reaches out and they're like, hey, do you have someone who does basement drywalling? Like there should be a person that you automatically think of. And if you can't think of someone, that should be the person that you all are out attracting into your organization, because it's obviously someone you need, which means likely someone else needs them as well. So this is the mission and vision as it exists today. I want to talk a little bit about what your experiences have been like historically as part of your association. So if a few of you would be willing to come off mute, I'd like to know how long you've been in your organization. I just told my story. How long have you been in your organization? What drew you in initially, and what has kept you there for as long as you've been in the group?
Hi, aloha everyone. Mari Villa from the Honolulu Executive Association. I have been a member since April, but I've known about this organization for 25 years. And I will tell you that I've always wanted to be in the group because I knew exactly what the group was about. But I didn't have my own business, I was employed. But once I started with my business almost 5 years ago, and Le Pedro, who's on here, and from Pacific Business News, and it was really nice because when she told me about it, I was like, oh, I always wanted to join because I knew exactly what this group was about, how respectful it was. And so I look forward to it. I'm already on the board. And as Lisa knows, that I'm already interested in getting into the IEA board. So I'm going to sit on some committees because I know the importance of how this organization works. So thank you so much for talking about this.
I love that. We're going to talk more about exactly the path that you just took in a second. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Who else? Any of our more, Christine, thank you.
Just to get some energy moving here. I've been in Sonoma County execs for 32 years.
Yes.
And what drew me to it was, at that point, I was kind of a fledgling self-employed person, and it gave me a great opportunity to meet people and to grow my business, and it was highly successful. And over the years, it has evolved into a very large company. My daughter bought the business from me 7, 8 years ago, so I'm an employee after many years of self-employment, and being an employee is so much easier than being the boss. So, but you have to have a good exit plan.
Yes.
So, and IEA was just a wonderful benefit. I used to be on the IEA board for many years, and golly, I met so many wonderful people, and it made the world so much smaller and more intimate by making friends throughout North America. It was just wonderful. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah.
I'd like to
If you
hear other
haven't,
people.
have you already done a webinar on how to create an exit plan?
Not really, because my daughter was there. You know, she was working for me, and I was ready to go, and she was ready to take charge. So it was just something that we rolled into. There really wasn't a plan. So
Yeah.
I just lucked out.
Love it. Congratulations.
Oh,
And thank you for sharing. Yeah, Marjorie.
Yes, I've belonged now since May of last year. I did not know anything about the Sonoma County Execs. I didn't even know that it existed. I had been in a number of different networking groups before the pandemic, and one of those women actually said she was in this group, and it was really great, and that's how I found out. But I don't think that a lot of us, even in the community, know that it exists. I have gotten a number of clients from the group. I've also loved the fact that I have so many to refer to, and I actually referred people. I have a client in Florida and connected with some people, members of the international execs, to get her some help. And right now I have a friend that's moving to the area. She needs a mover. She's got a real estate agent from the group. She's got a mortgage loan person from the group, and she's going to have a mover from the group,
That's awesome.
contractor. So I love that. I wish more people knew about it. I'm on the board now, so we'll just see what we can do to kind of infuse it with some new blood and some more mojo. One of our long-term people just is leaving because it's lost its mojo. So need to know how to kind of reinvigorate.
Yeah, interesting. Yep. Le Pedro said, trusted network of connected business decision makers and leaders in the community. Yes. Yes. Truth. Love that. Thank you. Rose. You are muted, Rose.
Okay, there, now you can see and hear me. I've been in the Sonoma County Executives Association for 7 years, I think. I'm now serving my second term as president of the board. And my first term was just as a pandemic hit. So I led the meetings, all that time on Zoom. And I took it on again because I wanted the opportunity to lead meetings in person. And when I first joined, it was just such a vibrant, energized group. And I had also been in a lot of other networking groups. And this was by far the most productive, brought me the most business, but also the way I described it at the time was that it was a room full of grownups. It was not cliquish. It was everybody was just, mature, comfortable in their skin, and there to do business, not to, play any games or have contests or be competitive or anything like that. And I really appreciated that. I think that, the difficulty that we're having, as a couple of my Sonoma County colleagues have said, is that just kind of lost our mojo. And I think the pandemic has just hobbled everything. And I think it's a lingering effect of that. I mean, it might just be that simple.
Yeah.
And so I know that we have lost some prospective members and also some members that had joined us because we no longer have a really viable Zoom option. So people do want that, but I think it's also true that meeting in person, you know, is really the ticket.
Yeah.
And
again, if that's one of the core values of your group, then stick with that, because what's for you will not pass you.
Right.
I cannot stress that enough. If one of the core values of your group is in-person meetings, hold the line. You will attract people who want to meet in person, and the people who want Zoom meetings will find networking groups that work better for them. And that's okay. I have found that by trying to brute force our way through things or make people feel included in ways that don't align with what your organization deems as most important, that's what ends up hurting the group. That's when you lose the mojo, because you've got people in the group that aren't the right fit, and that's okay. They're not bad. You're not bad. It's just not the right fit for the group. So let's go out and find someone in that designation who values that in-person connectivity, because it means something to us.
Yes. Yeah. We're about to hold our annual long range planning meeting. And this is obviously the big topic is how to attract and retain people. One of the things that we did during the pandemic is that we granted several leaves of absence. So people still paying dues, but didn't have to show up. And, it's been really hard to say, well, partly because we lost so much money during that time in our reserves. It's been really hard to say, okay, they still haven't been coming back, many of them, or very spotty attendance. And we really feel like we're in a bind because we don't want to say, hey, you're not meeting the attendance requirement, you're out, because we need the money. And, they want to still be members. So that's something that some of us are starting to feel very strongly about, that it really is time.
I have leaves of absence on my best practice list, which we'll get into in just a little while. I think it came from your chapter, so thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, there's for sure a balance there. Absolutely. We'll get to Mickey and then Deborah. Thank you. And then we'll move on. So Mickey, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Mickey. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm president of CEA here. I've been for this calendar year, a member for about 4 years. We've had a lot of the similar problems, I guess. A lot of our members have been around for 20 plus years, and they're aging, and they're not adding new ideas, that sort of thing. We also have sort of young and what I would call middle-aged newer members that are adding some new energy to the group. We've done a couple of different things. We do have a social club. We run a golf tournament and a couple other functions during the year that help us sort of grow those relationships. We also change up the format of our meetings a little bit because it can get pretty stale just doing the corporate profile. I don't know what everybody else does. I have no idea if we're the same or different than other people, but we started running 3 times a year, a panel discussion. So choose a topic like, I don't know, real estate, and have 3 or 4 of your members become panelists and someone moderates the discussion. That way the room can get a little bit smarter and learn from the experts in the room, and another one might be on renovations or whatever, but those kinds of things just to mix up the format, because the format was getting a little bit stale. We found we have members that are there. Some members are there strictly to grow their business. Some members are there as really more like a social club than anything. And some are there.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Mickey.
To have access to serve. It's hard to serve all those masters, but that's what we do.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. And I'm glad that you brought up the format shifting, because we've noticed that as well. Sometimes it can get a little stale. And so how do you mix that up? We had a meeting actually just last week or 2 weeks ago where we had just low attendance. It was one of those weird summer weeks where we had a huge baseball game. There was a lot going on that day, so low attendance. And we just chatted, and it felt so nice we did exchange of business, and followed the traditional format that we would have. But instead of having a speaker that day, it was just lovely to just sit around and chat with each other, which we usually don't. So it's interesting Yeah, just to mix it
Do a
up.
couple of open forum days, pick a topic and just exchange ideas and thoughts and whatever. A couple of guest speakers, like a Chamber of Commerce president will come in or whatever. So we try and keep it fresh that way too. It seems to help.
Love it. Thank you. Deborah.
Hi, Deborah New from Honolulu Executive Association. Addressing two previous people talking about the pandemic and whatnot and retention. We had about 10 or 12 people that did not want to come back into the room. We were on Zoom, but it was because of health issues, because of the fear of getting COVID, because there's COVID happening within the room. And people are not communicating. So people get it. And it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
I had to address it to the board. And the president I knew, because I brought her in, Kendra Murray, and she's really good. I asked her, look, we need to come to some kind of to save the 10, 11 people from leaving. We have to address a safe haven. And we did. We designated a spot within our meetings where these people can go and sit. Now, if they choose to leave that spot, that's on them. But they had that spot so that way we could bring everybody back into the room. Yeah. There's ways of, or we have to start looking for solutions. That's what it is. Yeah. And we have to keep politics out of it. We have to keep what makes us comfortable. Because everybody, even new people coming in, they may have strong energy and whatnot, and they bring a lot. But we also have to not forget about the vested members. And a lot of times, when you have a good amount of new people, which I invite to the board, but we have to remember about the vested members. They've been there a long time, and you want to get rid of them? That's not good.
And there's so much value and like the amount of, I would tell, Mallory is here, of course, who's our president. Yay, Mallory. And I talked a lot about how my business wouldn't have made it through the last several years had it not been for the DEA and it was a lot because of the veteran members. Being surrounded by veteran members who have seen economic ups and downs, have seen shifts in the economy, have seen shifts in the types of people that you onboard, different leadership structures, different team type structures, different office setups. Like there's so much background and wisdom there that I can glean as a relatively new business owner. I mean, we even just talked about it with Christine, right? Like we've got folks who have been through mergers and acquisitions with other companies. We've got folks who have opened new locations and gone through these massive expansions. Like there is so much goodness there. So thank you for bringing that up, because we talk about here in the next slide, what role does diversity, equity, and inclusion play in your chapter? And that is, when we talk about equity and inclusion, that's everyone. That is regardless of age, regardless of color, regardless of sex, regardless of background, all of it. That we're leaving all of the politics and all of that aside and saying everyone is welcome at this table. And not only are they welcome, but we appreciate you for exactly who you are. And so by you making space in your meetings for people who needed a safe space to go because they were particularly unhealthy or just wanted to feel like they were in still a little bit of an isolated bubble, that is equity and inclusion. That is us saying, I appreciate you for exactly who you are and for what your beliefs are, and I'm still going to make space for you and celebrate you as part of the group. I'm not going to exclude you as a result. So thank you for bringing that up, Deborah. So with that said, that was a perfect segue into this. And yes, tremendous knowledge and experience in the room, Eric. Thank you. Absolutely. So we talk about how the IEA is 107 years old. 107 years old. Our DEA group is about to turn 100 this next year. That is incredible. It is something to be celebrated. For me, as a relatively young business owner, I mean, I'm in my 40s. I know I look like I'm 21. That's neither here nor there. But for me to come into this as a relatively young business owner and join an organization with this amount of wisdom and knowledge, this amount of experience, this amount of background, and all of these things we just talked about is such an incredible opportunity. And so we have to look at it from both ways. And Mallory, you brought it up when you talked about this earlier. How has our chapter adapted in order to remain relevant, also maintaining this positive culture, celebrating traditions of what came before I did, before some of the younger members of our organization did, maintaining a lot of those traditions and making sure that we're carrying them through, but also spicing it up. Like some of you just talked about, like some of us are missing that mojo. So how do we create that mojo? And I love it that Marivilla brought it up where she said, I joined in April and I jumped right in. And so for us, what we've been seeing as a chapter is that a lot of the folks who don't make it, who end up opting out within that first year, they're not jumping in. We're either our older folks may not be including them, or the younger members aren't stepping up and saying, I want to be part of this. We're seeing some, not always, it happens randomly, one-off, but a little bit of that entitlement, right? Where I come into the organization, I am the siloed person in this designation. I just expect business to start flowing my way. And those of us who have been with the group for a few years or longer know that that's not how it works. You have to establish relationships with all of these business owners so that they know you and they value you for what you bring to the table. And then you will be the first person that pops into their mind when they think, hey, I want this thing. So we have to take a look at it honestly as each chapter and say, what role does diversity, equity, and inclusion play in our chapters? This has been a huge focus for our chapter over the last few years. We were fortunate to have a few presidents who looked around and said, you know, the times have changed. Our organization doesn't look like a diverse enough group. And so we have to be intentional about focusing on that. And so we went out into our local communities and we said, we want to start attracting people of all backgrounds, of all colors, of all ages. And let's go out and start seeking those folks out, not waiting for us to come, not waiting for them to come to us. If I were a person of a minority, and it was hard even for me in the early days, I joined the first meeting and we had very few women in our organization. It was a very male-dominated organization. And even that had grown a lot over the years prior, but we have had to make that an intentional focus. How do we go out and actively seek out women? Because otherwise we're going to wait for them to look at photos of our group, see a bunch of folks who don't look like them, and they're going to think that they don't belong. And so we have to be intentional about going out and seeking those folks out when you're talking about acquisition. So that's number one. Number two is adapting in order to remain relevant. You can maintain all traditions. We follow the same meeting structure that we always have, and we always will. When we're sitting in our board meetings, we refer to our bylaws, and if there's something that we don't remember or know about because we're not familiar with it, we always refer back to our handbook. We will maintain those traditions through all of eternity. And also we must figure out new ways of including folks. And so we just, over this course of the last 6 months, spun up social media. We're starting to post more stories on Instagram and do reels and more posting on LinkedIn. We're not in like the TikToks and Snapchats because I don't know how to work those and I'm running social media for the DEA and that's fine. But for the things that I do know about, how do I push content out there to start to attract some of these other folks, right? And what does that content look like? Am I making sure that I'm posting photos that represent diversity, equity, and inclusion? Or am I posting a group of people who all look like one type of person? Be very intentional when you're out there doing the marketing for your chapter. It is very, very important. And then just like some of these other things that have been pointed out, golf tournaments, movie nights, we'll have like cocktail hours, or we're trying to do all sorts of stuff, games, and one of the favorite things that our chapter has started doing is offsites. So we always meet at the same location every Thursday for lunch. We now have our members, and this has gone on for quite some time now, but it's one of the favorite things that happen is a member hosts our group at their location, and we have this fun lunch and everyone gets to hang out and see the space that we all work in, because it matters. You get to see the environment that your people are playing in every day, which is awesome. And then what does positive culture look like for your chapter? So again, if we're taking a look at this, and that's that energy, right? When you walk into the room for these meetings, what does it feel like? Do you have people who are bringing energy? Are you excited to see each other? Are you getting there early so you have time to sit around and hang out and chat with people? And is this something that you're talking about out loud in all of your meetings? We all want for everyone in our groups to show up in the best way possible. Talk about it out loud. Not that everyone has to be having the best day of their lives every time they show up for one of your chapter meetings, but it should be one of the highlights of the week for your people to be able to hang out together. And so how do you find ways to invigorate it and make it fun? It would be very easy. I mean, you guys can see with me, right? Like, I'm like, sometimes. And so I think when I first walked into the room, there was an element of, I felt like I should be a certain way. And I think it's when you've got any executive who perhaps is newly promoted, even in the corporate world, or for those of you with larger organizations, you promote a leader and you see this little bit of a shift in them where they're trying to show up as someone that potentially they are not. And so as board members, especially, it's important that we talk to each new member and make sure that they know that they are valued for exactly who they are. They don't have to show up as someone that they're not. Are you bubbly? Are you fun? Are you withdrawn and introverted? You can be exactly who you are, and we will celebrate you and make sure that you have a seat at this table, regardless of the type of person that you are. And talk about these things, right? Make people feel included. This is how you spark energy for your group. You want to make sure that everyone feels like they get to be the version of themselves that they want to be when they get to show up. So some of the best practices that came out of some of the feedback that I gleaned from you all, and some things that we've put into practice for the Detroit chapter, one-on-ones. So when a new member joins, that you're immediately assigning a person who's going to be with them. They might not even know that that person is going to be with them, but that person is going to be responsible for checking in with them regularly, making sure that they're doing one-on-ones with other members, because it is on the new members to be reaching out and establishing some of these relationships, but it's also up to us as board members to make sure that that's happening. So assign a mentor or a one-on-one partner, someone who's been with the organization for a little while, who understands the value of relationships, to whoever that new person is, to help them engage in the group quickly. Again, the goal is to get that person exchanging business to and from and developing some of those relationships within 3 months of them joining the organization, or you'll start to see them withdraw. Yes, mentorship, exactly, Eric, thank you. Do exit interviews. For those chapters that are not doing exit interviews, do exit interviews. When someone says that they are leaving, do an exit interview. Feedback is a gift. Even if they have awful things to say, isn't it better to know that and to be able to pull the nuggets out that is something that you can do with? Let's do those. Temporary leaves of absence, we heard that. There has to be boundaries around that. So a temporary leave of absence could look like something like, yes, we will allow up to 90 days of leave of absence. You get 1 quarter where you don't have to pay dues. And then the expectation from there is that you're returning. And if you're unable to fulfill the requirements set by your chapter for membership, then you're not the right fit for the group. Exit. Guest focus areas. So something we've implemented is if we know we've got gaps in our membership, I just brought up pest control. Let's go out and seek out pest control business owners and invite them to be part of this group. And so we put out a guest focus of the month each month for our meetings. And we say, this is the focus area. Go find those people and let's bring a bunch of guests in and find the right person for the group. Documenting your onboarding processes. Board member focus areas. So for me, it's social media. It's not a committee. It's just something that we know of. Yes, Jocelyn, put out a list of open categories. Yes, I love that. List out the open categories every week. And also ask your members if there are categories that aren't on that list that should be, because I think we've got gaps on our list that are just things we haven't thought about yet. that could help us bring on more members. And then in addition to board member focus areas, something else that we started doing this year is like, they're not board members, but jobs for people who aren't board members. So we've got, as an example, we want someone to help handhold new members as they join. Go out and don't make that a board seat. Like the board members already have enough going on. Find a member in your group who could be a potential board member and give them a job. If you have a new member, Marivila was an example of that. You have a new member, give them a job. People are likely to stay, plus they'll become more vocal if they have a job within your organization, which will allow other people to get to know them faster because they're playing a role in the organization very early on in their engagement cycle with you. We need a lot more interactions at the international level. I had no idea anything about the international chapter until literally like late 21, early 22. It took me almost a year. Yes, past president mentors, keep them involved as well. Yes, great point. Thank you. And then feedback loops. So are you getting feedback from thank you so much. Are you getting feedback from your members, and are your members able to come to you with feedback? There should be a constant feedback loop happening there. And then we're also giving out annual membership awards in Detroit. So who brings the most guests each year? They get an award at the end of the year. Who's had the best attendance each year? They get an award at the end of the year. Find a bunch of silly stuff. Just give awards. People love awards. It gives them attention. We don't have time to go over what else. We do want to be able to collect any other membership acquisition ideas that you have, any other retention ideas that you have. We would love to see that. So please email us after. And then just a reminder that we are stronger together as an international group. So the more we can engage in this, the more you can remind your chapters to get engaged in this group, the better off we're all going to be. I guarantee you that there's so much value in some of your chapters. There's roles that you play in your chapter that we don't have in Detroit. And we should absolutely be exchanging a lot more business than we are at the international level. And lastly, this is me. Find me at Christina at reconnectdetroit.com, 586-530-9225. The top one is my LinkedIn, and the bottom one is my Instagram. Thank you, Michelle. And just as a reminder, for Reconnect Detroit, I do coaching for women. So leadership coaching, life and wellness coaching. So I'd love referrals from you all as well. I would be remiss if I didn't ask for that. So thank you all for having me. Lisa, thank you for the invite and for helping me organize. I appreciate you so much. And I'm out.
Thanks so much, Christina. Before you run off, we do have time left for questions. If anyone has anything they'd like to add or in your what else questions, we can talk about that for a few minutes.
Perfect. What else we got? Bringing guests in open classifications, but not having done business with them, so they haven't been vetted. So that is a huge one, and we've actually talked about this. So we haven't had it happen too often, but there has been a time when someone brings a guest, and what if they're not the right fit for that designation? What if there's like 3 other people we should meet for that designation? And so is there like an interview process for that? Are we actually spending the time to vet them? Have we looked, we do an interview process as part of our onboarding, but I think we could do a better job of looking at the background and seeing what their history has been. And I mean, we do less of a background investigation on some of our folks than I would do on a team member I was hiring, for instance. Not that you need to do a background check, but even just digging into like their social media, the things that they've represented of themselves online, their websites, right? Like things like that. So I love that you brought that up, Jennifer. Thank you. What else? Any questions?
Wendy, go ahead.
Wendy.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I just want to respond to that comment you made about if they're there strictly for business, it's probably not going to work. I find that so so interesting, and we went through last week. We went through how long we've been in HEA and why we were there. And my comment was that I was there for the friendships, maybe more than business. And a former member who passed away was really there for the friendships. And if he got business, that was exceptional. So I find that interesting that the social side of it really does turn around and make a difference in the business side. Thanks.
It does. It does. It makes a difference, right? Because you value those relationships so much. So of course you would give business. And so the key there, I think, is making sure that as a chapter, that you understand how valuable that piece is, and that that's what the focus area needs to be. If we look at the underall mission and value of the mission and value statements of each of our chapters, I would argue it is more business focused, and also isn't all business based around relationships. And I've been fortunate, and Mallory is one of them, and Christine, I think, was on this call. I've been fortunate to develop really deep personal friendships as a result of this organization, but it's because of the work that I put into it. And I wouldn't have put the work into it had I not already been in it for the business. So I think it's that catch-22 of which came first, the chicken or the egg. In the end, they're both critically important. You have to be able to exchange business. It's the purpose of the association, but you also need to have those personal connections with the people that you're spending this much time with. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Eric, I agree. Yeah, personal relationships just as important as the business. Again, it's why we see so many of these folks falling out. They haven't developed the personal relationships, so they're not seeing the business.
Christina Jocelyn wrote in the chat that they've had some members who bring guests into categories that are more niche categories, and they're worried they might not get a lot of business. And I just wanted to speak to that. We've had that happen in Charlotte, and I kind of feel like let the business owner decide that for themselves. Like, you might think that. And also you have to remember that some people are going to join your executives association because they want access to your members, in the sense that they might not receive a ton of business from it, but they want to have access to that trusted network to know that they can leave a key under the mat and the handyman can let himself in and fix what he needs to fix in the house. And that's worth it to them and their membership. So we have had members in Charlotte who themselves don't get a ton of business, but they get the network, and that's what they want. So I think as long as you're honest with them up front, I think they're a worthy member to join. It's just my opinion.
Totally agree. I remember when I joined telling myself that if I had, 2 referrals a year, that it would make up most of the cost of my membership, or, you have to do that mental math and know. And so I went into it not expecting to get a ton of business, but needing to, as a solopreneur at the time, now I've got a team, but at the time I was on my own. And it meant more to me to have pillars around me of other people who were in the same space, who could help hold me up, because I felt so alone. So I figured even if I only had 1 or 2 leads come out of it, it was worth it for me to surround myself around amazing humans. So everyone has their own motivation there. And I love that, Lisa. Thank you for bringing that up. Like, as long as they're cool with it and are going to give everyone else business, does that work for your group? New members must step out of themselves and not expect the network to be your whole business. Yes, agreed. Happy birthday.
It's Kern's birthday.
Yeah.
It's
Kern's
birthday.
I didn't even tell that one.
We're celebrating him in Miami today. It's okay.
Well, I want to be in Miami today. It's chilly here in Michigan. Woo. Love it. Any other questions? This is a great topic. And so I hope that you'll all go back to your individual chapters, talk about some of this stuff, and say, what do we do? What do we want to do with it from here? I think each network or each association had their own nuggets to add, which was just so fascinating, and loved it hearing from everybody. It was all similar, and yet everyone is solving it from different angles. So I'm so glad that we got to come together and talk about this. Having a trusted network that we can refer clients to. Yes, you are a better partner to your client, Nadine. That's great. So true. So true.
Christina, I just want to remind everybody that this webinar will be posted to the IEA YouTube page by the end of the week. So if you want to share it with someone in your association, you can find it on the IEA Web YouTube page. So I encourage you to look for it there. And for the EDs on the call, if you want to deep dive further into this conversation, feel free to message us on the Slack channel, and we can share classification lists or mentorship outlines or anything like that that might be helpful to take back to your chapters.
You got it. You've all been great. Thank you so much. And thanks for all the chatting too. Sometimes I'll get in these calls and no one wants to share anything. So this was great. Great group.
Well, thanks very much, Christina. We really do appreciate it. And
Thank
with
you
that,
all.
I will close this AGM and thank everybody for joining us today virtually. And I look forward to seeing you all in Las Vegas next September. We will get those dates out to you, and thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.